The beginning of the 20th century in Lithuania was marked with a sign of rebirth. The reign of the great empires in Europe, which lasted for a long time, was slowly falling apart. Lithuanians, Poles, Finns, Czechs, Hungarians and other nations, ruled by Russian and Austrian monarchs, sought liberation. The resistance of the nations gradually grew into the desire to create sovereign states. Lithuania freed itself from the grip of Russia in 1918. However, before that happened, the difficult road of nurturing national consciousness had stretched before them. Lithuanians had to withstand the ethnic oppression by the Tsarist government, which lasted for over 100 years, and to consolidate their identity. The new modern society associated the future with ethnic Lithuania, and the Lithuanian language became a clear sign of national identity. The priorities of the future state were formed based on these views. Art, theatre, music and literature integrated into the common movement for the rise of the nation and developed into an important way to express national consciousness. At the beginning of the 20th century, Lithuania experienced such strong cultural renewal for the first time since Vilnius University had been closed down in 1832. In 1900, Lithuanians participated in the World Exhibition in Paris separately from Russia. A modest exhibition of ethnography and banned publications showed that Lithuania, which was erased from the maps, was not defeated and existed. In 1904, after the ban on publications in the Latin alphabet was lifted, editorial offices of Lithuanian newspapers, printing houses and bookstores, which became true focal points of culture and education, began to be established. After the political riots of 1905 to 1907, the unification of the nation became even stronger. After Russian officials partially changed the regulations for the activity and establishment of associations in 1906, the most important cultural, educational and academic associations were established. A national art movement was born abroad, where future Lithuanian artists and writers pursued higher education and clustered in informal groups of like-minded people. The association Ruta, established in Krakow in 1904, contributed a great deal to uniting the forces of Lithuanian art. This is where the idea was born to establish an art association that would unite the dispersed forces of Lithuanian artists to financially support their studies and work, and to take care of organizing exhibitions and art publications. Similar art associations had successfully operated for about 1 decade in other countries: Sztuka in Krakow, Manes in Prague, Secession in Munich, and the Art World Group in St. Petersburg. They both developed national art and reinforced the spread of new art. In 1906, in Vilniaus Žinios newspaper, Petras Rimša was the first to openly speak about the need to organize a Lithuanian art exhibition and to establish the association. The painter Antanas Žmuidzinavičius, the writer Gabrielė Petkevičaitė, and others agreed with this idea in the press. A large part of the intelligentsia got involved in the organization of the exhibition. Artists who supported the Lithuanian movement and considered themselves Lithuanian did not take long to respond. A portion of those invited did not get involved, and others, after learning about the exhibition being organized, came without being invited. Local Polish artists were more distant. In other countries in Eastern and Central Europe, similar processes of national differentiation took place. Nationally minded Lithuanians sent their works from Paris, Munich, Krakow, Warsaw, Kazan and other cities, and more remote Lithuanian regions to the first exhibition in Vilnius. The exhibition was created in order to display not only professional works, but also works of folk art. The first Lithuanian art exhibition, the gala opening of which took place on the 9th of January 1907 at Petras Vileišis' palace in Antakalnis, was very successful. The exhibition was an important result of the national movement, which showed the art of non-existent Lithuania, united forces of dispersed artists, and provided an impetus for the further development of Lithuanian art. The same year, in 1907, the idea of establishing a Lithuanian art association, which had been considered for a few years, was also implemented. It brought together not only artists, but enthusiasts of other professions as well. This movement in art, which grew ever stronger, included increasing numbers of writers, cultural figures and representatives of the intellectual society, teachers, lawyers, doctors and industrialists, who lived both in Lithuania and in Poland, Germany, the USA, Latvia and Estonia. Antanas Žmuidzinavičius agreed to manage the art association, and the most active core of the association consisted of 19 people. Mikalojus Konstantinas Čiurlionis, Petras Rimša, Sofija Gimbutaitė, Jonas Vileišis, Antanas Vileišis and others were among them. The association publicly announced its goals: first, to cultivate and develop Lithuanian art; second, to unite and bring artists from all artistic areas closer together; third, to provide material and moral support to artists and painters, especially those who want to pursue training in their specialty; fourth, to develop artistic taste among the Lithuanian people; and fifth, to collect pieces of art with different manifestations of human creation. Before the First World War, the association organized exhibitions in Vilnius every year. A total of 8 exhibitions were held. 3 of them were taken to Kaunas, and 1 was even taken to Riga. After Mikalojus Konstantinas Čiurlionis died in 1911, for the first time the Lithuanian Art Association presented almost all of his paintings and works of graphic art to the public in an exhibition in Vilnius. Later this exhibition was taken to Kaunas, Moscow and St. Petersburg. The Lithuanian Art Association not only organized exhibitions, but it also intensively developed other areas of activity. It initiated and supported quite a few publishing projects, financed the publication of books, catalogs and postcards with reproductions, it allocated grants to painters or to art school students after accumulating funds, it organized art competitions and collected, displayed and promulgated Lithuanian folk art. The association actively promoted the idea of the House of the Nation, a national culture and arts center. Solid capital was collected, but the project was not implemented because of the war. The establishment of the Lithuanian Art Association impelled other artists to join together as well. In 1908, the Vilnius Art Association was founded. It united creators of different nationalities. After Lithuanian art exhibitions began to be held, discussions about the uniqueness of national art were begun. Exhibition reviewers deliberated about what Lithuanian art should be like. It was agreed that Lithuanian applied art should be created based on folk art, and especially on its ornamentation. However, the question of how to paint a painting or make a sculpture that would best show Lithuanian national features was not easy. Some artists depicted types of people, Lithuanian landscapes or everyday lives of peasants, and in this way they tried to express their Lithuanianness. Jonas Mackevičius, Antanas Jaroševičius, Tadas Daugirdas, Antanas Žmuidzinavičius and quite a few other artists painted such realistic paintings. However, there were also artists who thought that limiting their works to the depiction of everyday life alone was banal. Neo-romanticists looked for the nation's spirit in the past, in the magnificent forgotten history and in folk art as well. It was thought that these spiritual layers unfold intuitively and irrationally. Some images, such as the Vytis, the coat of arms of Lithuania, landscapes with crosses, and dawn motifs, became popular as symbols of national rebirth. The Lithuanian spirit was associated with the melancholy landscape and expression of extreme nostalgia and reflection. Symbolic canvases by Mikalojus Konstantinas Čiurlionis, Petras Kalpokas, and some canvases by Antanas Žmuidzinavičius were really brilliant in this respect. The symbolic works, The Ploughman and the Lithuanian School from 1864 to 1914, as well as busts of famous people made by Petras Rimša, spoke about the nation's hardships. Folk ornaments and stylized Art Nouveau forms began to dominate in graphic art. Lithuanian primers illustrated by artists and public periodicals, as well as other publications, encouraged the public spirit. The question of being nationally minded, which was considered while discussing the first exhibitions, quite often overshadowed artistic problems that were of no less importance. And works that were too symbolic, or as critics call them abracadabra-like, were often publicly criticized. The variety of stylistics that dominated the exhibitions revealed the different aesthetic attitudes of artists, which were determined by attitudes of European art schools from the end of the 19th century to the beginning of the 20th century. Some of them worked based on the traditions of realism and academic art, while the quests of other artists unfolded within the framework of the stylistic trends of Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Neo-Romanticism, Symbolism and Art Nouveau. Later on, most young artists worked in independent Lithuania and made up the core of artists who spread Lithuanian art throughout society at that time.